Being on the fence about signing up for a 5K or 10K or half marathon, or honestly any major life change because you think you're slow or you're not ready, maybe this video could be a sign for you to do whatever you need to do or take that leap and just go and refuse to stop. Last weekend I ran my very first half marathon, and I did it as a self-proclaimed unapologetically slow runner. I crossed the finish line and I got the medal, but I'm going to be completely honest with you, it wasn't as graceful as I had imagined it was going to be when I was doing my practice. Around mile 10, the wheels didn't just wobble, they completely fell off, and I had the worst cramps that I've ever had in my entire life. I was basically negotiating for about 15 minutes whether to keep moving or to just maybe finish up. Before we go any further, let me know in the comments, are you a seasoned runner or are you part of the slow and steady club like myself? Drop a runner emoji if you are out there hitting the pavement no matter what the pace. Now, if you are new to this channel, you might be wondering who is currently talking with you. My name is Phyllis. I'm a scientist by training. I actually have a PhD in microbiology, study things in great detail, which was kind of like the same approach that I used for my my marathon training. So naturally, when I decided to take on the half marathon, my analytical brain thought, great, I'll just apply a structured scientific formula to this and it'll go by perfectly. Spoiler alert, the human biology on the open road does not care about your perfectly structured spreadsheets. Execution will beat perfect planning any day. So if you search half marathon on YouTube, you see a lot of elite, naturally athletic people finishing around 90 minutes, smiling, drinking green juices, looking like Greek gods. This is not that video. Today I want to take you to the behind the scenes of what half marathon training feels like for the rest of us that are ordinary people balancing real life, work, and personal improvement. We're going to talk about the training, the setbacks, the race day panics, and the brutal mistakes that I made for my training so that you don't have to do them as well. Because surprisingly, my biggest lessons that I learned over those 21 kilometers had very little to do with running itself and everything to do with how we handle the difficult things in life. So first off, I wanted to just touch on why I signed up for this half marathon. I think a lot of people assume that if you sign up for longer distances that you're already a fast runner or that you already consider yourself as athletic. But for me, signing up wasn't about becoming an elite athlete. I think that window is closed. It was just about proving to myself that I could commit to something difficult and see it through. I also wanted to challenge myself and I wanted to improve my physical fitness. But more than that, I wanted a goal that scared me slightly. A full marathon would be like a bit of a reach, but a half marathon would be something that would take me out of my comfort zone, but would still remain attainable. The funny thing is, signing up is the easy part. It takes 5 minutes. You take the credit card, you start filling your numbers, and then you show up on race day. If you've ever signed up for something that absolutely terrified you, go ahead and hit the like button and let me know we're in this together. I also wanted to touch on the expectation versus reality. Let's start where every grand athletic endeavor begins. Well, for me, when I first registered, I already had the runner app, so I used that to train, and I synced it with my Garmin watch. It's great because there's interchange. There's kind of like a crosstalk between the two apps. So for the first few weeks, I had a plan, and this removed all the guesswork. I didn't have to figure out how fast I needed to go or how far I needed to go each day. My watch told me what to do and when to do it, and I just did it. And all great things, it was good in the beginning, and I thought, okay, this is actually going to go great. And I thought to myself, I gave myself a finishing time goal for myself. I set there for myself a finishing time goal. But then as soon as I became too ambitious, then things started happening. In terms of, I had a few life work deadlines. I suddenly had, we had bereavement in, someone who was very close to me. So that threw me off track a bit. And that person was also who was also going to run. We were going to run the half marathon together. Well, not together, but it was like they were doing it, I was doing it too, and so it was just going to be a great experience of doing it with someone else there. So then that threw me off track, and then the weather, if you've been to Ireland, you know that the Irish weather can be a bit unforgiving in terms of rain. So these are all my excuses as to why I didn't completely stay on track with the training. But then I don't want to dwell so much on that. I just wanted to talk more about I love the quote that says, fitness can only cash the checks that training has written. I love it because it's pretty true. On race day, you cannot summon fitness out of thin air or out of motivation. You're reaping what you've sowed, basically. Well, having said all this, consistency will beat motivation each time. We live in a culture that's obsessed with finding motivation. We watch inspiring videos. I do anyway. Let me know if you do too, or if you don't. We get hyped up, waiting for the perfect feeling to strike before we act. It's not what's going to sustain you. It's the consistency that keeps, like your legs moving when you finally do the marathon in June. I wanted to also take you through the race day morning and the atmosphere that we had. So when running morning arrived, despite my patchy training, the energy was high. I woke up around 5:30? I think I woke up around 5:30. And I had my porridge. I normally fuel in with porridge and bananas. I drank my plenty of water, and I did my, my race day traditions, or my, like the things that you normally do for race day to make sure that everything goes smoothly. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't too hungry or too full. The day before, I had collected my race pack. And, it always makes it easier if you already have the race pack with you, because then you don't have to worry about, collecting the number on registration, on race day, finishing the registration. But one of my biggest mistakes, which was not even running related, I forgot my lip balm. Which sounds entirely ridiculous and minor if you haven't, I have a really bad habit of licking my lips. And when I run, I kind of hold them so I need to kind of keep them moisturized. And so when we went to the garage or the convenience store, they didn't have any. The one that was open, because it was a Sunday morning. And so I just had the most uncomfortable time with that, because it felt like my lips were sore. So when we arrived at the start line, the atmosphere was electric. And it was great. People were the atmosphere of race day, Cork Marathon is always great anyway. And so I didn't have any I didn't have any regrets at the time. I didn't feel like, oh, what am I doing, or anything like that. I was just happy to be there, to take it in. But before, the starting horn blew, the organizers took a moment to commemorate a runner who had tragically collapsed and passed away at the previous event. So it was just a day to it was a time to come together and to remember, and to even appreciate, to remember the runner, and to appreciate what our bodies can do, and to just, don't take it for granted. Don't take running for granted, or take life for granted as such. And so we left with my friends. I'll insert a few clips here and there, and we started running together. But my friends are fast, and I knew that my training had been subpar, so I requested that they could please not wait for me, because sometimes it feels like it's more pressure if people are kind of waiting for you, or if you're trying to keep up with them. You have to run you have to run your own race in the true sense of the word. It was going quite okay. I saw my old manager's son. He's so lovely. Give sweets. They were standing by the side of the road giving sweets. That's also a mistake, to try things that you haven't eaten before during the race. But thankfully my tummy was not upset at all by that. It was all great, and there were a few people on the route that was giving out water or spraying with water, because it was a very hot day. For myself, I know that I get headaches as soon as my body heats up, I get headaches. So my main priority was, let's just get like my hair wet so that I cool down in my head for some reason. And that really helped. Then mile 10 hit and I started just cramping. And I kind of can explain why that was, why particularly mile 10. It is because I've ran 10 miles before. I've done a couple of 10-mile races. And so my body, I suppose, is used to running 10 miles. But then I had not gone further than that, and I had not run previously, like anything close to 21 kilometers. So then I started cramping. Then my strategy then was to do the pillar pole, pole to pole. So it's like you just run from one pole, light pole, to the next, and then you walk and run next to the next light pole, and walk again. And so that kind of helped me then in terms of instead of thinking, oh, I have 5 kilometers to do, I still have 5 kilometers to go. I then just thought, okay, let me run to the next pole. Here now, looking back at the data, or just kind of looking at things in retrospect, I know exactly how, where it went wrong. It was a combination of two things. First, as I mentioned, it was the lack of consistent long runs, which meant that my muscles simply hadn't built up enough endurance for, to sustain me for those hours. And then the second mistake was completely tactical. Underestimated race nutrition and the electrolytes, mostly the electrolytes, because I had been, as I mentioned earlier, I was drinking water. Like at every station, I was getting my water in. The one thing I didn't want to do is, like, it's kind of like a fear. I didn't want to just be like, needing medical help. So I was drinking water. I was getting my hair wet. But then when we are out there sweating there for that long, then we're not only just losing water, we are also losing out on essential salts such as magnesium and potassium. By drinking that much water, I was actually diluting the remaining minerals that I had in my body, which was kind of like my one-way ticket to Cramp City. The one thing though I commend was doing the pole to pole. There was a gentleman that was eating chips on the side of the road, and people were so kind and friendly. So I just asked him, I said, can I have some of your chips because, well, I'm cramping? And he did give them to me, and that helped me a bit. But it was, it was better to do the pole to pole, because instead of having like one overwhelming obstacle that I still needed to like finish the run, I was just focusing on doing the pole to pole and just listening to my music. There were two more realizations that hit me before I finished before I reached the finishing line. One is that walking isn't a failure. As runners, sometimes people look down on walking, or sometimes people would say, oh, your running pace is my walking pace, or something like that. So it's not a failure. Like, running is an activity rather than the pace. Some people are fast walkers and some people are slow runners, but neither is better than the other. And it can help you recover. So for me, it helps me to recover, because then I got to the finish line, I was able to take pictures, and also I had to walk back to my car, which was parked like I want to say maybe like 3 kilometers away over a hill. So I knew that I still needed my legs even after the finish line. So the walking really definitely helped me. And so the second lesson that I learned was, you never, like, most of the time you don't really feel ready. You just have to do what you need to do. Like, I remember on Saturday when I went to pick up my race pack, I was just thinking, I was just kind of contemplating not doing the half marathon, because I was like, okay, this is the longest run I've ever done, and I didn't prepare well for it, so maybe it's a risk to do it. So what then I realized is that if I'd waited until I felt 100% confident, I'd still probably be waiting, because it's not like I could, I wouldn't just sign up for the next race, because they take time, I'm sure the races that are currently ongoing now are pretty full. Since there's been such an upsurge of everybody running, you have to sign up for half marathons beforehand and, ahead of time. You can't just wake up on a whim and decide to do it. So, would I do things differently? Of course, absolutely. I'd do things differently. I'd stay closer to the training plan. I'd pay more attention to the way I fuel. But also what I would do differently is that I just trust my body, because I've run before and I've walked before. So of course I could do it. I know it's like sometimes life is also not as straightforward. Sometimes it's messy and painful and slow, but so your body is capable. Like as long as you give it a chance to prove itself. Yeah. So yeah, that if you've been sitting on the fence about signing up for a 5K or 10K or half marathon, or honestly any major life change because you think you're slow or you're not ready, maybe this video could be a sign for you to do whatever you need to do or take that leap and just go and refuse to stop. This channel is all about documenting real progress, messy growth, becoming a little bit better every day without the perfect, without the perfectionism, just showing up daily and doing your best. If that sounds like something you would like, or a community that you want to be part of, please take a second to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification. It really helps my growing channel to grow a bit more. I'd love to continue this conversation down below. Let me know if you have any scary goals that you've been putting off because you don't feel completely ready. Let me know in the comments and let's hold each other accountable. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, or if you've got some value today. Until next time, just keep moving forward.